Good evening, everyone. This is Dhananjay. Thanks, Arpan, for intro. Uh, so I hope all of you are doing good. Waiting for this pandemic to get over, and maybe pretty soon, maybe you guys would be interested to plan your next awesome trip with us. So a little bit about myself. I'm Dhananjay. I work at Goibibo with a mission of ensuring the best travel experience across all the platforms. So when I say across, this across has a very a significant meaning which we will get to know during the course of this talk. Right. So let me just quickly talk about this particular project. So today I'm going to talk about Fugu, right, and how the Fugu is actually helping us to bridge the gap between a native app and mobile web. And this has been a kind of a continuous efforts for all of us. All of the web developer could, I think, relate to this kind of requirement. So before I actually delve into the details of Fugu and why at Goibibo we decided to embrace Fugu, as well as the different benefits which we have received out of it, let me introduce you to the journey. What we did before we started working on Fugu. So this is something you know during this journey I'm going to share lots of my experiences, some data, some milestones which we have kind of identified uh, during this journey. But let me give you a disclaimer. So all of these details is something which is subject to e-commerce domain and particularly our first-hand experience. So please take it with a pinch of salt. Okay, so let's quickly jump into the journey. So guys, this is a year which I'm talking to you, all of you, 2007, and this was a marquee year. Any guess, what this year was about? Maybe you guys can just write quickly on the chat. So the whole web journey, right? The web journey had this 2007 as very, very specific time period. And this, I think, had changed lots of paradigm, the way we have been doing our web development. And I think a big credit goes to this year because of which we are doing these kind of talks today. Okay, so let me just answer it. So 2007, this was the year when Apple launched iPhone, right? So when iPhone came, it isn't the case that before iPhone people were not using web. Web was very much in use. In fact, I think if my memory works well, the World Wide Web, right? It actually was available to all of us by the year of 1991, right? So it has been almost 30 years since World Wide Web is there, and people are using it for different use cases. But 2007, that changed the whole paradigm the people started using and the kind of expectation which people had from online world or maybe the internet in general. So if you see, right, if we just continue in this journey, what we notice that since the beginning of 1991, when the World Wide Web was made available, uh, people started making lots of use cases from this utility. But most of it, for a very, very large period of time, the internet was all around and focused towards one particular device, which was desktop. And lots of serious businesses were happening over there. It was just that when uh, lots of use cases were building up, and then came the domain of e-commerce, where the money was involved. Now everyone could have just straight away gone to a online world, do some of your selection, make a payment, and maybe enjoy the experience, right? Now the time when money is involved, people are very, very cautious to first trust the kind of platform they are using, and hence desktop was doing all of it. And since desktop was the at the center of this whole paradigm of using internet for e-commerce, maybe the reach was also growing at the space of the way the desktop was growing, or it was available to the mass. It was 2007 when when Apple launched iPhone, and suddenly people started, accessing internet while they were on go. Right? It is no more required to be in a particular space, sit at a stationary position, and then use internet. You could have used internet from anywhere of your imagination. Okay, so the moment these kind of users started coming to internet, their expectation also, grew. So they started expecting a lot, but the kind of device, the kind of form factor from which they were accessing this whole application might not be, working well for the solution which we have given to them, because we as a web developer were caught completely off guard because we were not ready for maybe something like this, this kind of revolution. So as a strategy, as a solution, right, for this whole paradigm, we decided, okay, what we know is desktop. We know how to develop very good for desktop. We know how to make a desktop application quite performant. Then why don't I, just reuse my desktop and maybe start, giving experience to the users who are accessing my application through mobile web. And that's what we did. So we adopted a responsive approach. And I think we were quite happy with it, because now at least no one could have said that, when they are trying to access this application is not accessible, because it was. I think only thing where we did not do a fairly good job, that, we were still designing for desktop. Most of our assets were actually designed to work well on assets, work well on desktop, maybe on a very consistent bandwidth. But when we kind of, just took this whole experience from desktop to mobile web in the responsive manner, the expectation, or maybe the, reality the user were getting, it was not exactly that way, because now suddenly there was issue of patchy network. Suddenly there was issue of various different form factors. So if you talk about Android, I think you have all kind of, screens, whatever you can think of. And this opened a Pandora box, because maybe we as a web developer decided, okay, I'm not going to say anything, because a working solution which used to work on desktop, I made it responsive, I passed it to mobile. Now it is all the, serious users who really want to transact, they will transact. So why should I care about it? And I think that's the approach we took for very long. While doing this responsiveness, maybe the users, web developers had to care about a new set of user agents. They had to program to ensure that their designs, their application is kind of working well on these mobile form factors. All well, I think to certain extent, all the stakeholders also started believing this theory that maybe the responsiveness or maybe the responsive mode is a solution for all these kind of problem statement. And for a very long period of time, we stayed like that. And then came another year, 2016, right? So we already discussed 2007 was a year when a new unknown, unfamiliar territory was introduced to the web world, and web developers had to react or respond to this kind of problem statement. We had, I think, first approach was a defensive approach. We tried to solve it, and we were kind of thinking that we had solved it. So it was an ostrich mode we went into. We kind of closed our eyes and we thought, okay, though there is a device through which user could definitely come, they will try to access our application, but not necessarily these are the users who really want to buy something, who are really a serious consumers. So we had this kind of, when I say we as a web developer had this kind of the thought process. It is only with a year passing by, we realized that by November 2016, and this is the data for the whole world, what we realized, the number of mobile devices which were available were more than number of desktops which were available. So this is like the whole table was turned. Earlier, desktop was what was a major contributor for all the traffic, for all the transactions. Suddenly, there is an equally potent or equally major same number of share of different kind of form factor, which is mobile devices. They were also in the game. So a lot of users traffic started coming to all these web applications, but not from desktop, from mobile web. So November 2016 was again another big milestone in this whole online journey. To the tune of, if I kind of take the examples of how this journey, particularly stayed with Goibibo. So 2012, this was a period, we were pretty much very, very comfortable with desktop. Almost at the 70% of our transaction, our traffic, they were at desktop. We were doing good. All was happy. I think, but this was maybe the forward looking of our leadership team, who decided, that desktop is maybe not something where uh, the future is going to be. The future is going to be mobile. So why don't we start, a bit early, start making some solutions, take this, problem upfront and solve for it, and solve for better. So this was the period, when we started. Okay, we want to solve for mobile web, and then we kind of zeroed upon the major problem statement, which any user who is accessing our application from mobile web faces. So it was not definitely that they are looking for a very, very high kind of best experience as such. First of all, the biggest or the first line of problem statement was that the website itself was not loading well, because, as I mentioned in the beginning, mobile had always a maybe patchy network. So our problem statement was, how do we optimize it? How do we ensure that we are able to deliver our application with the least size of JavaScript? So we built our application where it had some 25 KB of JavaScript. We brought it to the users to use it. It was a functional application. We started getting some early traction on the mobile web, but it was never sufficient to to say that, okay, we solved the mobile web problem. Going ahead in this whole statement, what we realized pretty soon, that the share of mobile was growing every coming year. By 2016, I think we started getting more than 85% of our transactions on mobile, and that was a serious share, right? And that's the time when we started seeing that within this mobile ecosystem, if I further dissect, what I realized, that almost 35% plus traffic is actually coming from mobile web. And this is the traffic which was kind of a primarily organic traffic, which is kind of a free traffic. So this traffic used to come all the way to the doorstep of our application, but maybe our application was not doing justice to it. So hence the bounce off was pretty huge. There was serious question that what should we do? Should we actually solve for it, or should we maybe think of, let's direct this traffic to native apps? Because by that time native apps started already doing pretty good. They were converting almost 3.5x of what mobile web was doing. So that was one of the paradigm. In fact, a few of the companies, they took this bold step. They said, I'm not going to entertain users on mobile web. Whosoever comes on mobile web, they should download our app and they should actually, be with it. Personally speaking, I think that was slightly ambitious call, because if you just think over it, right, all the users who is going to download your app, actually your app is going to do a competition. So they have to earn a space on your mobile phone. Storage is limited, right? And you cannot download all native apps of the world. You have to download only few. So that means there is always a competition. I think I did just try to see what is the average storage Android application or Android phone has in India, and the number comes out close to maybe around 24 GB. So roughly either the phones are 16 GB internal storage or they are 32 GB internal storage. So from this 32 GB, lot of space goes to the operating system. If they are not stocked, this number even goes further. So that means the competing applications have they have to be really competent to win that space on your storage. So I think pretty soon people realize that we could go to the game of maybe ensuring that people download our app only to certain limit. And there was a race, everyone participated into that. But soon, the growth of this mobile app downloads also started kind of becoming, flattening up. and hence again the focus shifted towards mobile web. What should we do for these 30-35% of traffic which is reaching to mobile web? That was a time Google came with the concept of progressive web app, which seems to be solving the problem, whatever kind of mobile web had in general, like, ensuring that your mobile web is fast in general. It could work in the offline mode. It could, maybe give you almost same experience what a app could do. And we at Goibibo also pretty much latched upon on this opportunity. We were like one of the very first to do PWA, and we did started getting benefits of different feature sets which came along with it, like Chrome notifications, add to home screens, offline mode. It worked well. In particular, the Chrome notification worked pretty well because now we had some way to target even the unregistered or the guest users, the users who were earlier, they used to just come and they used to bounce off, and we had no idea about them. Now we had a tool to retarget them, to reach to them, and maybe persuade them to come back and maybe do a transaction with us. So all started looking a bit rosy because we had a better solution than what we had earlier. I think our conversion rate also got some uplift by doing PWA. It just happens, once you give a solution to user base, their ambition becomes much more higher. And same thing happened with mobile web. Now the mobile web was doing much better than what it used to do in its earlier version, but the expectation of our customer, of our industry leaders also grew, because now suddenly what happened at mobile web as well as app started looking exactly same. So when it was to the extent of that, it was so tough to distinguish which one is mobile web, which one is native app. And hence people started thinking that, since mobile web could come so close to app, why can't it also have all the native feature sets? In the sense, when you actually, try to do a transaction, SMS or SMS comes or OTP comes to your phone and your app actually auto reads it. Why can't I do same thing on mobile web? On your Notive app, you could actually go and maybe sync your phone book. You could actually use your phone book for different purposes. People's question was, why can't I do same thing on maybe mobile web? So these kind of questions started cropping up, and it became more and more serious, more and more people looking for it. And then came this kind of, I would say, a consortium of different companies which involved Google, Microsoft, Intel. They decided, okay, let's try to solve for it, and then started project called Project FUGU. So Project FUGU, what it does is it try to give you a standardized web APIs, which should be able to give you the similar kind of feature sets. Basically, people started saying whatever the app can do, MWeb should be able to do. And who is going to power it? It is going to be FUGU. Hence, FUGU came into the picture, and we also started working on it. So I'll talk about FUGU, and again, once I show you how quickly we did, on these different stages, how the mobile web of Goibibo hotels look like. So the first version which you see right towards your extreme left. So this was our first functional hotels M website, which was built only with 25 KB of JavaScript. Around 2016 something, we decided to go PWA, and the one which you see in the center, that is our PWA approach. Again, we made some more theming changes and some more feature sets, and we finally adopted the FUGU capabilities, and that's what you see in the rightmost version of hotels application. So when all this was happening, what we realized pretty soon that the traffic trend, as I talked about one of my previous slide, moved completely from a desktop measure to mobile measure, and to the extent of 85-90% of transactions started happening on mobile web. We also noticed one more thing, right? That none of these transactions were kind of a single session transaction. In fact, there has been lots of situations where the journey, or when I say journey, it is like an experience where user is starting his transaction and finally when he is completing his order. So this whole journey at so many times kind of spread from mobile web to apps. So that means there was. So I think one of the Google data says that there is at least in the 46% of cases there has been always at least one transition between mobile web and apps. So that means that how important it is to have a seamless experience between mobile web and app, and that's what started happening. So this whole thing, changed the whole outlook how we started looking into mobile web. So the company's approach became mobile first, right? From the desktop major, now companies started looking into mobile first. So pretty much this was very, very good, and this is something where we were reacting, and I think we were reacting in a positive manner towards what user were actually looking for. So they were looking for the best user experience where they need not to worry about whether they have the sufficient storage to download an app. They should be still able to serve perfectly, and that's what we started doing when we adopted PWA and later on Fugu. I think so there is an analogy. So if you do not actually work on your mobile web, it seems to be in a stage where a kind of shopper is coming to your shop and you are asking them, don't come to me from this door, come from another door. So if you do not serve your mobile web, that's what actually you're doing, right? Soon people kind of accepted this problem statement and they started solving for it. Now the main, the topic what we were discussing, what kind of app gaps we were talking about. So during all this course of time, we realized, native app has a plethora of features which not necessarily are available on mobile web. Few of them like, offline mode, maybe background sync, push notification, and the list goes on. So these were the feature sets which mobile web was, eagerly looking for to adapt to. So, so this is what, when I talk about, or when anyone says app gap, maybe this is what we are talking to. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, the project Fugu was something which was an attempt to fill this gap. I think the interesting word Fugu is kind of a Japanese word for a, kind of a fish, and I think what it is seen at this particular dish is if it is not cooked well, it is kind of considered to be dangerous. Almost on the similar lines, if you try to open up a lot of features on web, but if you are not maintaining the core tenets of mobile web like privacy, security, trust, so you might actually break big time. So you have to be really, really careful when we are working on Fugu. So one quick example how actually Fugu works. So this is the a schematic diagram how a web share API is implemented. So if you see, the browser is actually giving you one consistent API, which is a share API. Behind the scene, Fugu is ensuring that it is kind of abstracting all the platform differences, whether you are, whether your browser, the one which you're using, it is on Android or iOS or Windows. So irrespective of what kind of device or operating system you are on, you are always, free to use one consistent API. That's what Fugu is helping us to do. As a result, I think this is somewhat today's state that Fugu has kind of solved lots of use cases. Lots of these features are already available for, for usage. Few of these features are available under early access program. So depending on how curious you are to adopt it, you could actually go to Fugu website and maybe look for details. So here I have kind of shared the links. One is web.dev fugu-status. So this talk about it, that, different feature sets which were requested, how are they progressing, and how a team is working on it, in what stages they are. There is an interesting another link which you could actually use on your mobile web to understand how much of these features are already available on your maybe on your browser. Something like called what web can do today. Now let me quickly show you a few of the examples what we actually did at at Goibibo. So this is not sure if this video is working. Yeah. So this is one of the examples where we started using web share API for sharing PNR status, and what it actually opened up. There's a method called navigator.canshare, and you can use that. It will open up the system native share dialog. You could actually choose one of those your natively installed app to share the application. This worked wonders for us. This actually started giving us, almost 10% of new users which we were started getting through this journey. There was another feature, and this is very very interesting, web OTP API. What happened over here is, the web actually opened up navigator.credentials API, using which you could have actually kind of intercept the SMSs which are coming from your own domain, look for those SMS, retrieve it, and maybe autofill your forms. And as a result, when we adopted for it, what we actually saw, that we were able to reduce the number of wrong OTPs by 25%. We also use something called Contact Picker API. This actually, primarily opens up the whole opportunity to start using your phone book via web. And again, we started. I think there were like 15% of use cases where people were eligible to use it, and part of it started using it, which ensured that the details which they were filling are kind of correct. So we did all of this, right, and we kind of received mixed kind of successes. What we realized that over this period of time, on different stages, we invested a lot on PWA. Then we started investing in Fugu. We did lots of performance optimization. We worked heavy on the monitoring part, but it was never the case, where we could have said that, okay, now this is a stage where mobile web is sorted out. And I think when I see retrospectively, I think I'm able to say that mobile web is actually a journey. It is not a destination. I don't know, there will be a stage where I would be able to say that, whatever conversion rate you have on apps, maybe same is available on mobile web. And I don't know whether that's the right expectation. So think that way, that, we should keep solving for mobile web, because that is where the users are coming, or maybe, getting introduced to your brand for the first time. So we have to give them, a kind of awesome experience. So that should be our motto, and we should continue on this journey. That's what I'm doing. And here is a team, at Goibibo, who is actually behind this complete Goibibo, PWA, and the Fugu projects, and they are helping us to solve all these use cases. So I think that's most of it, and I will be here for, I think, AMA session. If you guys have any specific questions, just shoot over the chat, and we'll be able to, we'll try to take a few of those questions and try to solve. So thank you. Thanks for attending this session.